All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Steve, and we are doing a book review today. It is September 23rd, Sunday. Actually, about 10 minutes to noon. I gotta get to bed here in a little bit. I got work tonight. But I wanted to go ahead and get this book review out. I've been working on it a little bit and kind of fine tuning what I wanted to say about it and all. But before we go ahead and get into what the book is and all that, I want to go ahead and, of course, thank you for stopping by my channel. If it's your first time, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you will be alerted anytime I put new videos out in the future. And if you are a returning subscriber to my channel, welcome back. I'd also like to go ahead and point out that if you haven't noticed, the name of my channel has changed. Before it was just my first initial and my last name. Um, I think after a little over 2 years now, I've decided to go ahead and change the name of my channel to Chaos Magic Mysteries and Mayhem. Probably more mayhem than mysteries, actually. But I'd also like to go ahead and point out that in the next couple weeks, I will have a Facebook page in relation to my channel here on YouTube. And as soon as I get a few things taken care of on that and I get it published, I'll be announcing that. Okay, and anybody who is a subscriber of mine and they would like to go ahead and join that Facebook group, they would be allowed to do so. I'm more or less making it for my subscribers as well as other people that like to join to be able to come in and post questions, share experiences, stuff like that. That way we don't have to necessarily do it in a public forum like on YouTube, but if you want to be able to come into like a Facebook group that's private and post questions and answers and stuff like that, and help each other out, then that's totally fine. Um, so again, go ahead and uh, be be keep an eye out for that in the next couple weeks. I do have significant overtime with my work the next couple weeks, so um, it's going to be a little later than sooner, more than likely. Okay. So give me one moment here, and then we're going to jump into the actual book, and I'll be right back. All right, folks. So the book we are talking about today is Healing Magick: Words of Power to Heal Yourself and Others by Rose Manning. Healing Magick: Words of Power to Heal Yourself and Others is independently published and authored by Rose Manning and was done so back in February of 2020. It is 68 pages long and is available in Kindle and paper format. The book shows and guides the practitioner through 14 different rituals utilizing Kabbalistic angel magic along with sigils in order to treat things such as depression, anxiety, pain, fatigue, illnesses, and more. Let me go ahead and state that I am not a medical professional, okay, in this regards, and the disclaimer as such. The work presented here is based on personal research, experience, speculation, and spiritual beliefs. The matters explored in the text should not be taken as professional or medical advice of any kind, and no implications about managing your health or any other aspect of your life are intended or implied. The author, as well as myself, who is the commentary on this book, sorry, I'm not the author, but the author, Rose Manning, and myself personally, we do not recommend the use of this book in the place of conventional medicine and recommend that the reader Always seeks conventional and professional help for maintaining or restoring health. The methods are to be used at your own risk, and the author, Rose Manning, as well as myself, is not responsible for subsequent experiences. The sale of this book is made on the condition that the work is used in accordance with the laws of your country or country of residence. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into this book review. You know, man, I tell you, Sunday morning, I woke up this morning like 7 o'clock, decided to get out and do some grocery shopping. I got a few people at work. They want me to bring in like some chili tonight. I have a mess, like a 7-quart slow cooker of chili going right now. If you can even imagine the smell in my kitchen right now, I don't know how I'm going to be able to sleep later on with that smell going on. So we'll see what happens. Well, so anyways, into this book review. Personally, when it comes to healing and health magic, it can sometimes be a hit or miss. I've found a lot of times that it can be more miss than hit, per se. Naturally, no kind of health or healing magic should be approached lightly, and certainly never as a precursor to modern and conventional medicine. And of course, the author does take great care in not only stating that in the disclaimer at the beginning of the book, but as well as throughout the book. Okay, this is a very idea that is stated throughout the book. And I couldn't agree with her more. It's not to say that health or healing magic doesn't have a place in like magical traditions or practices, but simply put, you should always take the necessary steps to finding, the root causes of your ailments and approach to healing the body and the mind together. They should be treated together, really. Unfortunately, a lot of today's medicine, you don't have that. A lot of today's medicine fails to make this distinction between how the mind and the body and they work as a single unit in order to keep, us healthy and safe. And modern science and medicine, while modern science and medicine, they do explain like a lot of the bodily functions and processes, they still fail to identify and explain the very idea of the soul and the spirit and how it plays a role in our bodies. However, we are seeing that there are great strides in areas such as quantum mechanics that reveals this very connectivity, this very bridge that merges, the two together, or we're finding those connections there, and that's always a plus. Now, I did bring this book up a couple weeks ago. We did a live chat on Facebook with the Lords of Chaos. I believe it was back on January 8th. We had a small group of people come in and join us with that. And I did, present this book back then. And I did make a short mention that I did try a few rituals in the book. Now, one of my reasons for doing this is I have a lot of food allergies and food sensitivities, particularly to like a lot of the gluten products. So things like wheat and barley, corn, rice, oats. I'm not allowed to have, I can't have those types of items. Now, quinoa I can have, and like some of your more obscure, grains that you don't hear a lot of, I'm fine with those. But as far as like the wheat and the barley, the rye, the rice, the corn, oats, garlic and egg whites are like other allergies for me personally as well. And these things developed over time. I wasn't born with these allergies. These kinds of things sometimes build up in our body, and and they manifest. Okay, so focusing on that, this was like one of my keys when I was kind of researching this book and finding out, like, okay, would I recommend this book to my subscribers, or would I not? Well, one of the main rituals that this that I had focused on in healing body disorders utilizes Raphael, and of course, Raphael, as we know, is the divine physician. Okay, and while I can't say for a definite that I've experienced any type of healing up to this point, it's not to say that it can't happen slowly over time, or that won't happen like later on. But Raphael did make a very strong point, and I did bring this up in that conversation that night, that he said, well, he's like, you have the tools already. It's like, I really don't have to be healing you, in this process. You have the tools already. And, he was, I prefer to hear what is needed as opposed to what I want to hear. I think that should be a distinction that any occult practitioner, or anybody really for that matter, not just occult practitioners, should strive for. It's like, what do you need to hear as opposed to what do you want to hear? And for me, he just said, hey, is that you practice Qigong, which I have not in a number of years, but I mean, it's one of my disciplines, along with, Tai Chi and some other martial arts. But the benefits that come with, say, practicing Qigong are quite extensive. It does harden the body. It does do wonders for the body as far as like keeping you fit and improving your immunity, your immune system, and stuff like that. And he said, well, you got that. And it's like, if you just go back to practicing your Qigong, you would, you could, fix your situation yourself. And then, of course, he was so kind as to also tell me about my alternative medicine that I practice, Pranic Healing. And so already it's kind of like I'm already being told by Raphael that it's, that he doesn't need, that I don't need him for this. And, Raphael is not the only one who's mentioned throughout the book as far as in the rituals and whatnot. There are other angels. I did try to go ahead and try to get as much information as I could on some of them. A lot of them are fairly obscure. So, like your traditional books, Book of Angels or Encyclopedia of Angels and stuff like that, a lot of them don't actually have information listing on those particular angels. Simply because it just comes from older source material, I think, and that's part of that issue. So you might have to, do some digging online, perhaps. Anyways, again, as the author, she takes great care throughout the book to mention, like, hey, that there are still risks that some people may, throw all caution out to the wind and attempt to invoke angelic forces, for severe medical concerns. She's trying to say, like, hey, don't do this. If you have a severe medical concern, go get it addressed, in a medical setting, of course. If you got a heart attack, get yourself to the hospitals and have somebody else, do a ritual in your stead, or a prayer for you at that time. You don't want to be, breaking out the Healing Magick book and going, hold on, I gotta call like Raphael for this. I know I'm having a heart attack, but obviously that's something you don't want to be doing. But While it's perhaps not the author's intent for the book to come off as, say, like a spiritual based healing or faith based healing, um, that's really kind of like where the book is going. That's the very nature behind this book. It is very much a spiritually based healing or faith based healing. Um, and this is like usually like one of the reasons why we don't see these types of books on the market very often, because particularly in metaphysics, because there's not a lot of information to support it, unfortunately. Our society as a whole has really just become very, very too dependent on going to the medical doctor and looking for a pill to take care of the situation. I call it the Magick Pill syndrome. A lot of people are just too dependent on the Magick Pill syndrome. They want a quick fix, and unfortunately, a lot of medical professionals that are out there are very happy to approach modern medicine in this very in this very fashion, and are happy enough to fix a situation with a pill or the application of a band-aid, as opposed to looking for actual solutions. The doctors and the doctors and we the people are simply and overlook what what's really ailing us. All we're really doing most of the time is looking for solutions to our symptoms, and not what is the root cause of the illness. And um, I think one of the biggest problems with this is that a lot of people, they're gonna some people are gonna get it, and they're not going to use a lot of caution, and they're going to approach the information with ill manner, unfortunately. And this is quite possibly one reason, again, why you don't see occult related books on the market that talk about the subject of healing magic, because again, scientifically, there's no evidence to support its claims. And you could get a similar result simply by taking a placebo or something like that. And um and that's quite frightening, unfortunately. um but on the note of health in magic, um and I'm kind of in the middle of reading several books, and one being Psychic Self Defense, or I'm sorry, Psychic Protection by Bill Duvendak, and he brings a lot of information up, particularly in the beginning of the book, about eating healthy and obviously making sure you're drinking enough water and stuff like that, and that type of stuff is important. One thing that I have to agree with, and as far as based on some of the information that he presents in his book, the one thing that I would have to attribute to the general state of health, in our general state of health, not just as individuals, but as a nation, um, other types of foods that we eat. Okay, uh, if we look at our planetary population over the past, say, 100 years or 130 years, our population has actually exploded into like large numbers, and we need a food production system that that is able to keep up with that type of population growth. And unfortunately, when you're looking to increase production or to feed a population um, of hundreds of millions or and even billions of people, um, things have a tendency to go wrong. Okay, So, to me, if the way that I look at it is, if I'm feeling ill, and this is probably the way that you should probably think of it as well. If you're feeling ill and you fall to chronic fatigue, and you're wondering, like, what is the reasoning for your medical situation, as your doctor is probably kind of wondering, you know, the first thing that you should probably be looking at is the types of food you're eating. Where are you getting your sustenance? Where are you getting your food? From your local grocery market and your food purveyors. Okay, because health benefits of today of the foods that we're eating only have like a very fraction, like small fraction of the benefits of the same food that was consumed 100 years ago or 120 years ago by our grandparents and our great grandparents. Okay, food grown 100 years ago, by our forefathers had greater nutritional value to what it is today. I'd wager easily that if you go out and you buy a bushel of kale at your grocery store today, it's probably got 1/5, and I'm being generous when I say that, 1/5 the nutritional value to it that a bushel of kale did, say, 100 years ago or 120 years ago. And again, I'd even go as far as to say, I mean, it might even have less than that. It might have, as low as 10% nutritional, value than what kale did like 100 years ago. And I think a lot of that, and I believe a lot of that, partly has to do with our food production. Pesticides, genetically modified crops, all that type of stuff that has a play in how much nutrients we're getting from our food. And in addition to, like, what we're putting into our body, we're putting in genetically modified organism into our body, as well as pesticides. Even if we spend the time to wash and clean our fruits and our vegetables and all that, it's still like in the food. Okay, and that's where the problem's going to lie. Okay, because food sources back then, when our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents were on the farm, they were their food sources back then were more farm to table. Okay, and harvests were often distributed more locally, when it came out to, say, farmers markets and throughout counties and where they lived, rather than it being trucked to the other side of the country. Certainly back then we did have some grocery trucking back then, but nothing as significant as we have today. You know, um, and the fact of the matter is that, man, and when I say man, I'm talking about like the human race, not like men in general. Okay, as long as man is allowed to meddle in the affairs of others, then man will most assuredly find some way to fuck something up each and every fucking time. Okay, our, I mean, you don't have to look any further than your nightly news, for something like that. Just, our nation's capital, it has far too many lobbyists with far too many agendas, and our nation's capital has far too many greedy politicians looking to line their pockets at the cost of their constituents that they've, promised to represent and serve, unfortunately. And as people and as a race, as human beings, uh, if we actually demanded more things such as organic farming, if we demanded that organic farming was made to be the norm, as opposed to farming with pesticides and GMOs and other so-called cost-effective ways, okay, then the cost of organic foods would definitely come down, because it wouldn't be considered a fad anymore. It would be the norm, and then we would have a higher nutritional value to our foods that we would see, and there would be a great pivotal point nationwide as well as worldwide in health. Probably wouldn't be right away. It might take a generation or so for something like that to happen, before like actual signs of that health benefit has shown up. But that that's probably the way that it is. And where what do all these pesticides and GMOs do to us? Do to our bodies? That's a good question, right? If you look at most any illness, disease, condition, whether it be a person or a living animal, that they could be affected by, in most any and every single case, in any illness or disorder, disease, inflammation is like number one on the list all the time. It is the number one symptom that causes all types of disease and disorders and conditions in our present day life is inflammation. So if you're able to reduce and remove inflammation in your body and eat better quality food, then you'll obviously see less problems in your health. And I know I'm kind of like rambling on this, I kind of like just bring stuff up like this, sometimes in my book reviews, but it's I kind of do it in order to make you think. Okay. And we need to think about that. We are killing ourselves by the food that we eat, not just because of fast food, just food in general, and how we allow people to grow it for us and distribute it. We need to take more control of that, unfortunately. Even if that means, having to grow food yourself. Have your own farm to table food, and then supplement from the grocery store. Now, personally, I did mention a little bit on Pranic Healing at the beginning here, and am I really going to recommend this book, or am I not going to recommend this book? Well, you probably already know where I'm kind of going with this, so but I'll wrap it up a little bit here. But as a pranic healer, as someone who's had lots of classes, I've spent thousands of dollars in my classes, from a basic pranic healing class. In most cases, is like $400 or $500. And additional classes after that are usually around like $500 a piece. It does depend greatly on the instructor and where it's at, and other situations. Then of course you have to consider like travel time in between, and costs for hotel, motel, books, materials, and all that type of stuff. So would I turn to a book on Healing Magick for a bruise or a cut or the flu or a cold, because there are protocols in this book for those particular type of ailments. Of course, there are other ones as well, for more serious ones, which I'm kind of not crazy about, because there are protocols in this Healing Magick book that talk about things for depression and anxiety and things that are like mental illnesses. Um, and I'm not certain that I could even would even recommend well, turn to this book and make a prayer and see how you feel about your anxiety in the morning. That's not something that I would necessarily say to anybody. But to the point of pranic healing, I have access to dozens and dozens of applications and procedures that are proven effective in many medical and health situations, from basic first aid, cuts and sprains and bruises, and coughs and colds, and flus, and earaches, to other disorders, skin disorders, and more serious conditions, psychotherapy conditions, addictions. And again, those situations have proven extremely effective in times of needing crisis. One of the first times that I used my crystal healing after I'd learned it, I had just gotten back from a weekend of the class, and I had my laser crystal at home, and just 30 minutes before I was leaving for work. I was working as a baker back then. I sliced my thumb open, and right at the end of the day, and I bandaged it up and whatnot, and I got home. The first thing I did was I pulled out my laser crystal, and I pulled out my book, and opened to the section for fresh cuts, and I began using pranic healing and crystal healing, and I'd say in about 20 minutes, and that's not exaggerating. It more looked like I just had a paper cut on my thumb as opposed to an actual cut with a knife. And literally, that's how effective pranic healing is. It can be more so in some situations, depending on your level of experience. But then, as well as it could be less, if you don't have as much time or practice in the art. So, would I turn to a book on healing magic for a cut on my thumb? Or would I wash it, clean it, put antibiotic ointment on it in a Band-Aid, or pranic healing, in my situation? For me, it doesn't take much to juggle that. Now, of course, obviously some people may not, have that discipline, that alternative medicine. But most people have Band-Aids and antibiotic ointment in their medicine cabinet at home. And if you don't, you can usually run out and buy some, no problem. And why am I talking about pranic healing in the middle of this book? Well, because my teacher and my instructors have had a very great influence on me for it, for all the years that I've been using it. Before our teacher left us in this life a number of years ago. I had the pleasure of meeting him in person, and that actually changed my life greatly. Um, I had taken a trip. I was living in Vermont at the time, and I took a trip to New York, New Jersey, for one of our yoga retreats for a weekend. Um, and my instructors, they picked me up from the Port Authority there in New York, and then of course we drove through the tunnel into New Jersey, where our retreat was supposed to be held. And I was put up in a motel for a couple days. Um, they picked me up at the Port Authority, and they say, well, we're going to meet teacher for dinner tonight. We want to bring you along. So I was stoked by it, of course. I'd only been in the practice probably for like 3 months by that point. And I thought, this is going to be like, a great opportunity for me. And so we drive to the home of one of the masters. I believe it was Master Glenn Mendoza. And he is a actual practicing medical doctor. And he also, mind you, is, back then was a master in Pranic Healing. I don't know what his title is at this point now, unfortunately. But he worked in the same medical hospital as our teacher did. I believe our teacher was involved in biochemistry, if I'm not mistaken. But Pranic Healing was actually taught to a lot of doctors and nurses in the hospital setting there, and they used it side by side with conventional medicine. And that's why, and they got great results with it all the time. And if you actually do the work, and I'll put a link in the description box below, and if you want to find out more about Pranic Healing, you can go to that website and find out more about our teacher. But we walked into Master Glenn's home, and we're just talking, and teacher was in the living room, and he was watching those old style kung fu movies. And then after I walked in, and I was able to sit down next to him, and he wasn't very talkative at first because he was so engrossed in the movie. But afterwards, we had done a little bit of chatting, and then he said, we're going to go to a Chinese restaurant in Chinatown. Come along with us. So we all piled into a number of cars, and we drove to Chinatown and had dinner for 3-4 hours probably, in a very private setting. The restaurant owners actually closed the restaurant down for our private function. And that was, I believe, the night before our first yoga class the next morning. But he had changed my life in a great way. So again, Pranic Healing, it's been around for 30 years. So, and it's in well over 100 countries, and it's learned by people of all types of professions, housewives and doctors and nurses and lawyers and everything and everyone in between, and has been used alongside conventional medicine for a long time. So again, if you want to learn a little bit more about that, then again, the link will be in the description box below there. Just click on that and go to the website. Learn a little bit more about it. So again, book recommendation, probably not so much. I'm not necessarily recommending the book, nor am I saying that it doesn't have a place or use. Always approach your medical situation with the seriousness required. Okay, if you do have a true medical situation that needs attention, always get and seek the medical advice that is needed, and then have someone help you out in your behalf. Have someone intervene. Do a ritual at home while you're going through your surgery or while you're going through the medical care at your facility, wherever you're at, and see what happens. And of course, even alternative medicines as pranic healing should, of course, be approached with caution. Okay, so as I stated earlier in this book review, Healing Magick borders on what is often referred to as spiritual-based healing or faith-based healing or just faith healing. Okay. It really doesn't have any verifiable information to go along with it. Okay. In fact, they describe faith healing or faith-based healing or spiritual-based healing as a practice of prayer and gestures such as laying on of hands that are believed by some to elicit divine intervention in spiritual and physical healing, especially in the Christian practice. Believers assert that the healing of disease and disabilities can be brought about by religious faith through prayers or other rituals that, according to adherents, can stimulate a divine presence and power. Religious belief in divine intervention does not depend on empirical evidence of an evidence-based outcome achieved via faith healing. Virtually all scientists and philosophers dismiss faith healing as a pseudoscience. And with that, folks, we're going to go ahead and call this book review done. Thank you for stopping by, of course, and listening to my rant. I should have a couple more book reviews here in the next few weeks, particularly some books on vampire magic, which I am kind of still in the middle of, as well as a few other books. I should be getting a couple more videos done for the follow along series in regards to money magic and reprogramming yourselves for money and success and financial well-being. And with that, I bid you folks a very fond farewell. Thank you for stopping by. I bid you peace and infernal blessings. Take care.